Hello. Welcome back to my channel. So, last year, 2025, I saw a documentary from the 80s for the first time. I think a lot of us, if you're here at this channel, you love the 1980s. It is probably your favorite decade if you found your way to my channel. But I haven't seen every 80s movie or heard every 80s album. And so this documentary was an example of that. It is called Streetwise. And this is a collector's, a book, photography book, which features photography by Mary Ellen Mark. And she is the one behind the actual documentary, which was filmed in 1983 and released in 1984. And it is about children, well, early teens to early 20s, who live on the streets in Seattle, Washington, and their existence. And it is not an easy documentary to watch, but it definitely stuck with me and made me want to purchase this collector's item that I'm going to share with you today. I will also link the documentary in my description because it is free to watch on YouTube. It is an hour and a half. So after you listen to some ASMR, you can watch that if you haven't seen it yet. But something that this documentary taught me is that we all have our favorite decades, and for me it is the 80s. But for people from tougher backgrounds, it doesn't matter what decades you are growing up in. It's not a good time. And for these young people, children really, their lives are very, very tough. Even though it is the 80s, things have not changed. And so we're going to go through these photographs which have quotes from the film. And I'll read the quotes to you and tell you little bits about the people that star in this. And it is not scripted. It is just a documentary, and hopefully it resonates with you, and hopefully you find it interesting. Perhaps this is a part of the 80s that you were not familiar with. And if so, I hope you find it interesting and relaxing. So here we go. So this book of photography is dedicated to Dwayne Pomeroy and Llewellyn Couch. And these are two young people who since passed away. And I will go over how they passed away as we come to their photographs. Before we get to the pictures, I just wanted to stop at the acknowledgments and say that the pictures depicted in this book, which was published, were originally in Life magazine. And after the Life magazine article took off, people wanted to see video footage, and so the documentary came out, and then this book came out. So it's like a collection of the lives of these young people, and these are the names of all of the people that appear in this film. So this is Tiny. That is her street name. Her real name is Erin Blackwell. And there is a quote from her mother. She has grown up quite a bit since she's been on these streets. She's 14 going on 21. And in the film, you learn that Tiny doesn't know who her father is, and she lives with her mother, who is an alcoholic and works as a waitress. and doesn't have much money. And Tiny, who looks very young even for 14, she looks more like 11 or 12. You find out that she is a prostitute. And she calls them dates. And she sticks with you. She has been called one of the main characters or the standouts of this film. Over here we have some more people. Pike Street area. There's people in wheelchairs. There's someone getting arrested by cops. The young people depicted are primarily Caucasian, and once in a while you'll see like a black person, but at this time in 1983 it was primarily Caucasian homeless kids. And over here it says, this is Rat. He is also one of the main characters, and it says, I wasn't even thinking about running away or nothing, but my dad told me that if I ever got caught selling pot, never come home 'cause he'd kill me. So when it all came down, I just said, oh well. And he is also in his early teens. I believe he's 15, but again, he looks so surprisingly young, like you would think he's like 11 years old. And we find out that his father kicked him out. He doesn't speak to his mother. A lot of these children have very similar backgrounds. And it's just very jarring when you're watching this. It's very interesting, but it's very jarring because it's not what we are used to seeing from the 80s. We are used to seeing so much fun, right? And nostalgia. And these children are leading lives that you would not want to live in any decade. So over here we have Tiny again with a friend, probably another prostitute. And she is saying for a blowjob it would be $30 on up. And for a lay it would be $40 on up. Most of these veterinarian hoes would charge more than us little kids do. And in doing some research, I found out that she was raped and then chose to go into prostitution after that. And she can't rely on her mother much because of her alcoholism and because she doesn't make that much money through waitressing. And you really root for her. You see these girls go to the clinic, these children go to clinics and doctors, and you hear all the STDs she has already had. And in the film, she reveals that she just had her first period for, I think, over the past couple of months, and she's 14, and she was already hooking before she even got her first period. So it is really a disturbing, but you can't pull your eyes away from it. It's a very interesting documentary. Says Lori and the Ferret Man. I don't remember them that much, but there are just a bunch of random characters as the camera pans around that you will see. Also, I have since learned that this street has been gentrified. It's come up since then, since the 80s, but at the time, a lot of young homeless kids were on these streets. And over here we have a girl named Lori and a quote from Tiny, who we just talked about the past couple of pages. And Tiny says, I think it is very strange that older men like little girls. They're perverts is what they is. And you'll notice that they speak broken English because these girls haven't even been attending school for years. I think some of them say they haven't gone to school for 2 years, and they're like 14, 15, 16. And Tiny does have, you do see a man a couple of times who seems to be in his 70s. I mean, it's 1983, and the man is in his 70s, and he's picking up a 14-year-old who looks even much younger than that. It is very disturbing, but this was these young people's reality. And this girl's name is Kim, and it says, So who cares? I don't really care. Whatever happens, happens. And that quote is because some of the other prostitutes are trying to explain to her what happens if she goes to the wrong pimp, how she could be beat up or raped or even killed. And we find out she is adopted, and she feels that her parents don't care for her, don't really love her or really know her. And when she turns 18, she wants to find out who her real parents are. But for right now, she is on the streets and she is hooking. Over here we have Tiny again, one of the main characters, and she says, I want to be really rich and live on a farm with a bunch of horses, which is my main best animal, and have 3 yachts or more, and diamonds and jewels and all that stuff. She has these dreams, but in reading about what happened to her past the film, multiple people tried to reach out and help her, and she never accepted it. And she went on to have 10 children, mostly from pimps, and they're usually mixed kids. And unfortunately, she never became rich. So yeah, but that was one of her dreams. Poor girl. And this girl that we see here fighting, her name is Shadow. That's her street name. Says, when I first met Patty, she was beating the heck out of some old dude because he said something wrong to her. Oh, that's right. Shadow is her boyfriend, I believe. And Patty is the girl that you see here. And I believe, if I looked it up correctly, I believe Patty passed away of AIDS because she was a needle user. This was her boyfriend, Shadow. You learn how to fight or you disappear. I know how to fight, but I like disappearing. And this girl's name is Lily. And Lulu, who we will see in, I think, a couple of pages, she says, I don't want to see her get beat up. She's too young. Now, something about these kids, it's kind of like a hierarchy, like a sociologist, like from a sociologist perspective. There are kids who have homes, they come from the suburbs, and then they run away from home and live on the streets. There's kids who have no choice because they've been kicked out, or their parents are in jail, or are drug addicts or alcoholics. And then you have ones who just come and spend time with these kids and do the bad stuff with them, but then they go back to their homes at night. So it's like, there's levels of this, and you learn about that in the film. And over here we have Patty and Munchkin. This is great photography, isn't it? And I don't know who this couple is. It doesn't say, unless that's them again. I think that might be Patty and Munchkin again over here. Here is Rat and Mike. And Rat said, when we'd get real low on money, I'd take Mike's 45 because I'd sold my 38 and I'd go roll a queer. And I had to look that up because when he says that, I'm like, what does that mean? Rolling a queer means that they would basically rob a gay man, I guess lead him on to think that they wanted something with him, but they're straight, so they would just rob him. So they talk about all the different hustles that as young people they do in the streets to survive, whether that be ordering pizza and asking to deliver it to a certain location, and then they would, hide, and when the person didn't come to pick up their pizza, the delivery man would put it in a dumpster, and so they would get it for free. So they told different hustles they had, and rolling a queer was one of them. So that is Rat. And Rat did grow up, I believe, to be a husband. He made it out. He made it out alive, but not everybody did. Rat says in the film, there's this abandoned hotel, and we'd carry water up in these gallon jugs because it didn't have no water or electricity. It was pretty easy, actually. So in the film, you see Rat and his closest companions living in this abandoned hotel. And that's how they survive and how they stay off the streets. I mean, it's still on the streets, really, but it's a roof over their heads. And so you see inside this hotel in the documentary. And Rat is saying, when you get regular dumpsters, we call them regs, you go there every night. And he explains how they get a regular dumpster because if they checked the day prior and there wasn't food there, then you knew that the food that you found the next day couldn't be that old. And so it shows them eating out of dumpsters. And there he is flipping off a man that he was trying to panhandle. He says, "Sir, you wouldn't be able to help me out with a little change, would you?" "No," the man says. And so he says, "Not at all, huh? You know, you're a fucking dick." So you see there's scenes where he's trying to panhandle, and some people are nice to them and some people aren't. And then this is another teenage boy who lives in the streets. His name is James. And it says if you get a fake ID, then you can go there and sell blood. And you see James giving blood for money. And I don't know if he has a fake ID or if he himself is 18. He might be. But I think Rat is explaining that you would have to get a fake ID to do that, but he also looks very young for his age anyways. So that's not a way that Rat can hustle, not like James. Now this is Dwayne, and he is one who does stick with you also. One of the most pivotal, important characters in the film. And Dwayne's father says, "You're like me, Dwayne. You're a con man, a smart-ass little punk." And Dwayne's father is in prison, and his mother abandoned him. And you see Dwayne visit his father in a scene. I'm not sure if there's going to show pictures of that. I haven't picked up this book in a bit, but maybe we'll get to that. He visits his father in prison. It's a very heart-wrenching scene because Dwayne feels so hopeless and so alone in his situation, and your heart really goes out to him. He also is very small for his age. He's 16 and he could be 12. He's very thin, and he has constantly inflamed, I believe, is it tonsils? And he might need those taken out, and I believe that's why he's so thin. But you'll hear more about him as we go along. And here is another quote from the film. "We don't mean to scare you, we're just telling you the truth. You get beat up. Some of these girls end up getting killed." And that's explaining what prostitution life is to a new girl. And just here's some more just photography, still lives of the streets of Seattle. These homeless girls. There is one in this film, and I don't know if she's featured in this book, but there's one girl in the film holding a baby, and she was actually a Green River Killer victim. She's one of the at least 3 who didn't live long lives. And here is Tiny and her mother, and it says, "My fear is that someday I'm going to get a phone call or a knock at my door, and she's not going to be there anymore." That's what Tiny's mother says. And you honestly don't really have much compassion for the mother in the film because she seems to just act like she actually says it's a phase that Tiny is going through being a prostitute. And I mean, she has a boyfriend that she lives with. I think there'll be a picture of him. And she just seems to, I guess, is just trying to keep herself alive, and she feels that she can't control her daughter, so she just kind of lets her do what she wants, and it's just very you don't have much sympathy for this mother. And here's Tiny again, and she is in clothing that you wear to a funeral, and you'll find out why later. And the mother, Pat, Tiny's mother, says, she thought I would be really angry with her and hate her, but I don't. It's just a phase she's going through right now. I can't stop her from doing this. She's just going to do it anyway. And that's what she says about her daughter. And I have to say, I do think a certain bit of it is personality. Because even if my mother was an alcoholic, at this age, I would probably just be staying in school, just trying to be safe, I personally am not the type of person, even if I came from a bad background, to put myself in harm's way like she does. My heart goes out to her, but I guess we all make different decisions, but I just couldn't live the type of life she lives. It just seems so dangerous, so scary. I would not want these old men touching me. It is just very tragic, but it is a part of life, and it is a part of the 80s that I definitely didn't really think about, or didn't want to think about, or didn't even know existed. But you definitely learn in this film that it does, and that it did. And here's Rat again, and it says, every person, no matter how big or tough they are, should always have a partner. And he discusses in the film his close friends, the ones that he can rely on not to steal from him or hurt him, and the people that he stays close with. But even with like the small bit of friendship they make on the street, it is just, I don't know how they do it. And it is amazing that he gets out of it. So yeah, this is him with some of his friends. And then here is Shadow again, and he says, I considered myself dependent upon a couple of girls supporting me, but as far as being a pimp, I never pushed them out onto the streets. A playboy is what I consider myself. And here he is with this girl named Shelley, who you see a scene where she's talking to her mother, and she says her mom is 32 and has 7 kids. And she's talking to her mother about how her stepfather molested her when she was small, and she told the mother, and the mother's like, well, he's not doing it anymore, is he? It's just, no wonder these kids are out on the street. They come from the worst backgrounds, and that's how it happens. It doesn't happen by chance. It doesn't happen by accident. These kids really come from these mind-blowingly bad, toxic, dysfunctional backgrounds. And so I haven't found out what happened to Shelley as she grew up. But I would be interested in finding out. And this is Lulu, and she's probably my favorite person in the film. She says, I've thought about not being a lesbian, but then every guy I've ever been with has screwed me over anyway. To tell you the truth, I've got to like somebody a lot to even kiss him. And we find out that, well, to give you a little background, Lulu also comes from a big family. I believe her parents are also, addicts. And she gets out in the street just because the house is very crowded that she lives with. These, we always hear about, well, people of color coming from big families. The majority of these characters are white, and they all come from like families with 7 siblings and parents in jail and addicts. And she just lives in the streets to get away from that. And she protects a lot of the straight girls and the prostitutes on the street. But we later find out, in reading about what happened to her, that she gets a girlfriend, and I believe they went to an arcade, and some guys were hitting on the girlfriend, and typical Lulu fashion, she tries to protect her girlfriend, and one of the guys is like a gangbanger, and he stabbed her. And I think her last words were to tell her siblings that she's dead now. And that was so unfortunate because I loved Lulu. She was my favorite. She was the one I just gravitated towards the most, I would say. And she's one of the older ones. I believe she was 22 when this was filmed, or early 20s. And over here we have Dwayne again, and he really likes Kim. And he says, let me get your phone number so I can call you so we can go out for pizza or something. And she says, I don't have a phone right now. And she's the one who was adopted and is newly on the streets. And he is the 16-year-old. And I think he's so cute, you guys. He was such a handsome young boy. And he's the one that will stick with you. And again, you'll find out soon. He seems so lonely and is just trying to make a friend, trying to make a girlfriend. That's Dwayne. And here we have Shadow talking about the couple who, Patty and Munchkin, he says they were in my eyes made for each other. They didn't really seem to go in depth on the couple. He says they argue, but doesn't all love affairs argue? Doesn't all love. See the broken English? Because none of them are really educated. All I know about this couple is I believe she's the one that was a needle user, and she ended up passing away of AIDS. So, and here's just some more photography, and it doesn't have the names of these girls. I'm not sure if it's the same girl or two different girls, just two more girls who live on the street and do not lead an easy existence. And there's Tiny again with her mother, and her mother says, I think she likes Tom, she just doesn't want to admit it. Tom is the stepfather, and Tiny definitely doesn't like him. I think he beats up on the mother, and so I think that's why she doesn't care for him. There's Tiny again. She grew up to not be tiny. She's quite heavy, quite overweight now, and has 10 children. But she wanted that even back then. She wanted to be a mother. But again, she wanted the ideal life. That she just didn't have any good guidance. And for her, I guess the street life was what she preferred. Here's some more photos of people. And we see this Reverend Tom Robinson. He says, if you want joy, you must jump for it. And there's a good scene between him and a pimp, one of the few black characters, and just discussing the hypocrisy of the church and of helping people but not really helping people. So there's that. And here's this character that we never find out his name, but he's in a wheelchair and he's always on the streets. And Shelley asks Shadow, why do you want to dye your hair? To change? And he says not to change, to get away from everything. And he's a natural blonde, and you see him go, black-haired and become very like kind of goth. And here's Tiny and her mother. And it says, we got in a fight. She was drunk that night. The next day she felt really bad. And the mother discusses she doesn't know why she started drinking. She said she was just bored. Again, I don't drink, so it's something that I can't really relate to, but this poor girl really deserved more. She deserved a better shot at life. There's Rat again, who Tiny has such a crush on. She says the reason why I think Rat is cute and the reason why I love him so much is because he's got pretty eyes. I think they're brown or blue, one or the other. And they have a little relationship, and I believe she takes his virginity away. And there was kind of a crass interview where they keep asking Tiny what was he like, in bed, and they're like 14, 15 years old. I don't know why that interview exists, but she doesn't really answer because even she feels it's crass, as an adult woman. And Rat said she just wants to get too serious at too young of an age. She's only 14 years old, and she makes it sound like she's ready to get married. Because ultimately she wanted a better life. She wants to get off the street, and she's already had so many STDs and, been with so many Johns, and poor little girl, that's not the life that she wants. But at the same time, it's the life she's comfortable with, and so she doesn't know how to get out of it. And this is a line from Tiny when she's speaking to a woman at the clinic. It says, "I want a baby, but not by a new trick, though." She doesn't want to get pregnant by one of her tricks, but she explains in the film that she is anti-abortion because she doesn't think it's fair for the baby. And this is a woman on the street, just a random woman with her child, a prostitute, I believe. So there's Rat gazing out at the water, and he says, "I love to fly. The only bad part about flying is having to come back down to the fucking world." And Tiny tells him, "Don't leave." Rat says, "I got to." Tiny says, "Then take me with you." Because towards the end he leaves, and he is very cruel to her, but they're immature, they're kids, but you see her cry really bad at the end because she kind of had her heart set on being in a little relationship with him and supporting one another and not having to do the street work that she does. So that's a real sad scene, and you don't like him for it, but at the same time they're kids and they're tough, and yeah, you feel really bad for Tiny. And here is Dwayne again, handsome Dwayne, talking about what he wants: get a girlfriend, have a house or a car or something, have a little money in the bank, get a job. That's what I expect out of life. Not much. That's all he wanted. And when he goes, they take him in at a shelter, and when he finds out he's going to get kicked out, and he finds out, his father has berated him from prison, his mother's abandoned him, he takes his own life. And that's like a pivotal thing at the end of the film. And this is an actual picture of him in his casket. Dwayne will be cremated and his ashes spread out on Puget Sound. He's free. He's never been that way before. Jerry Esterly says that. And I don't recall if Jerry Esterly was a social worker. I don't recall. Or if that was his father. No, I'm not sure. It may have been one of the social workers. But that is such a sad scene because he was such a handsome boy. So the fact that I believe he hung himself before they were about to turn him back on the streets. He just could not take it. He could not take having to be out of the shelter and out in the streets again. So, but I did not see that coming, although the friends say that he was very depressed. He was very depressed with the state of his life, and no wonder. That's one thing I can't fault him for. I absolutely would be the same if I were in this situation of these poor kids. And the rest of the book is just the entire, well, it's not a script, but the entire, what they say throughout the whole film. So yeah, I guess it would be a script. It's not scripted, but it's the script of the actual whole film, which again, like I said, you can watch for free on YouTube. It's an hour and a half long, and I will try to link it in the description. And the picture of Tiny dressed like this is because she's going to Dwayne's funeral, because they were all friends and they were all kids. And that was such a sad, sad ending. But I wanted to share this very hard slice of 80s life to you just because it's very, it's something you would not expect. I just discovered and just found out about this documentary a year ago. So I saw it for the first time about a year ago. And if you haven't seen it, I highly encourage you to. This book goes for quite a bit of money. It was expensive for me, but I got it at a fraction of the price for which it goes for. I think I paid about $100 or a little more than that. But it's a rare piece. I hope it was interesting. I hope if you haven't seen Streetwise, I hope it inspired you perhaps to watch it. If you know any of the characters in this film, somebody who knows them personally, somebody from Washington, if you would like to comment down below, I would appreciate it. Or if you have anything to add that I did not bring up in this video, I would also love to hear from you in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and good night.